Video link, Hilary Benn.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to speak to new clause 5 on the state of nature target. There are few things that can lift our spirits as much as time spent with nature. Who does not feel a sense of awe and wonder at the astonishing biodiversity of our landscapes and its creatures and its plants? So as well as ensuring that that same sense of awe and wonder can be enjoyed by future generations, it should frankly be self-preservation that urges us to confront the threat of biodiversity and habitat loss. It should be respect for the soil from which we came, the soil that has given us everything we can see around us: food, fuel, raw materials, medicines, the ability to capture carbon, and the soil to which we will one day all return, a reminder of our place in the natural order of things. The truth is, we can no longer take all of this for granted. Why? Because we are destroying our natural world at an alarming rate. In the words of the Minister's own department, much of England's wildlife-rich habitat has been lost over the last century, and there has been widespread species loss. The latest State of Nature report records a decline of 13% in the abundance of UK species since 1970. 15% of UK species are now endangered, including the red squirrel, the water vole, the ghost orchid, and the meadow clary. The number of moths has decreased significantly in the last 50 years, and a third of British wild bees and hoverflies are in decline. And 97% of our wildflower meadows have been lost since the 1930s. This is a crisis caused by agricultural practices, pollution, urbanization, habitat loss, and climate change, and it requires action. And that's what this new clause seeks to do. Now, I welcome the government's commitment to binding targets, but I think it can be strengthened to make a good bill better by putting on its face a target to halt and begin to reverse the decline of habitats and species by 2030. This should not be too difficult in principle for the Minister, because this is exactly what the United Kingdom called for in drawing up the Leaders' Pledge for Nature, which commits to reversing biodiversity loss by 2030. But of course, to reverse loss, one must first halt it. And the problem is that the bill's timetable for setting targets doesn't fit in with the 2030 biodiversity pledge. So this new clause would place a requirement on ministers to draw up, before the conference of the parties later on this year, a 2030 state of nature target to halt and begin to reverse the decline in species and habitats, and to set out a plan to do so, including how the target would be measured. It would need to cover the abundance of species, their risk of extinction, and the extent and condition of habitats, bearing in mind that widely accepted and reliable sets of indicators already exist to enable us to assess these things. Now, I accept that the target is ambitious, but if we're not going to be ambitious now, then when are we going to be ambitious for the state of nature? And it's not as if we don't know what works to bring about change for the better. We do. We just need a lot more of it. The truth, Madam Deputy Speaker, is this: we have always known that the natural environment sustains our souls, but we've now come to understand that it also sustains our very existence. That's why it matters, and that's why we should do now what we know in our hearts to be right. And I hope the House will vote for this clause later on today. Thank you.